Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my podcast, Anxietea, a mental health podcast, where I give you mental health stories, self care tips, and techniques, and whatever you all want me to discuss. As a reminder and as a disclaimer, that I am not a mental health professional, just a mental health advocate getting through life one day at a time. Here is also the warning that there may be sensitive topics discussed within this podcast, so feel free to leave if this does not sound like the podcast for you. So, without further ado, welcome to episode 8. Let's grab our tea, take a sip in of some self love, and exhale the stresses of life. So, I have been a little bit far behind with all of my videos, including my podcasts, so I do apologize about that. I will be working harder to make sure that I get these in on time more often. Life has just been crazy with student teaching. Today I am just drinking water because sometimes just drinking water is better than drinking tea. So, for today's podcast, we are going to discuss what to do whenever you are feeling anxious or just mentally not okay during a class or at work. For me, I feel as though these are the most inconvenient times to not be feeling 100% yourself. It feels difficult to keep it together during these times because it feels like there is so much to feel anxious about, especially with the fear of losing control, where you end up as the center of attention with concerned faces looking at you, which is the last thing we want. If this happens, though, as it has happened to me plenty of times, do not worry. People are more understanding than you might think, and with more mental health awareness, people are recognizing symptoms more and more. We will also discuss what to do when it gets to that point when you lose control of yourself and emotions in public, such as within class or at work. These scenarios can help in any kind of public situation, even parties or at a doctor's office or just by yourself. However, I mention class and work because those are the times where I feel like this the most often because of the frequency of each. So, out of each day, you are bound to have a few days where you are not feeling as mentally well as you usually do or should feel, and that is okay. Even with the inconvenience, it is normal and is something that everyone has experienced. Everyone has their own life full of catastrophes and amazing moments, and some days we get stuck going to work or class on those catastrophic days. It would be nice to always feel amazing, perfect, and happy. However, those perfect moments are not what shapes us or gives us strength at times. Sometimes we have to go through rough times in order to get to the better times. A few podcasts ago, I kind of touched upon this and used a lot of general techniques to use, but I wanted to be more specific about feeling anxious in class or in the workday and using more specific techniques to help. So, first things first is breathing, of course. That is always the basic form of valuable techniques that you can have. I like to focus on my breathing first and try to calm myself down with deep breathing techniques and breathing in for a certain count and exhaling for a certain count. I try to do this in a more subtle way if it's in public by quietly breathing through my nose and exhaling quietly out of my mouth. This just allows me to feel more grounded, calm my mind and my breathing, and slow my pace down a little. Next, once I have calmed myself down, I like to tell myself in my head or even write down that I am okay. I allow myself to recognize that this feeling will pass and recognize any irrational thoughts that is triggering my anxiety. Battling with those thoughts is difficult, but it is beneficial for me to combat them so that they do not take a hold of me. Knowing that you are in control of them, even when it doesn't feel like it, allows yourself to remain in control of your body. Doing this in combination with the breathing works the best in order to ground yourself and realize that you are safe. Just by telling yourself that you are safe, you can start to feel more safe because your mind is very, very powerful and you think what you believe. Next, I like to quickly just close my eyes and do all of this as well because it feels like calmness just washes over me. This took some practice, but it made me feel like an instant calm, like I'm ready to sleep. It's that kind of calmness that we want, and we can do this through changing our body posture as well. We want to feel relaxed, and by creating a relaxed body posture, it helps. Even though it is relaxed, that does not mean that it is going to be a slouched over kind of position. In fact, it is more of a confident and tall posture. And even whenever you're closing your eyes and doing those breathing exercises and this posture exercise, you can think of a happy place that you like to go to or happy thoughts. My happy place is at the beach, so I like to think about being at the beach, and it really, really helps. For me, I take a take as needed anxiety medication when it feels too unbearable, but sometimes when I am unable to do so, I try to distract myself. I use calming distractions rather than distractions that make your mind race even more. A calming distraction that I like to use is color spotting, as I mentioned in a previous video. If you don't remember what this means or you did not see the previous videos, please watch them, but it basically is you picking a color and trying to find objects with that color around the room to name until you run out of that color, and then you choose something else if you are not yet calm. Distractions that may make your mind race even more is going through emails or text messages or anything that may end up making you feel more anxious, such as snacking, nail biting, pacing, smoking, etc. If you are allowed to listen to music, sometimes this is helpful to calm yourself down, especially calming music like instrumental or background music, music you like, or jazz. I find that background music is especially calming when I'm trying to get work done and it feels like I'm overloaded with work. If you work in a classroom setting or at a desk, you could put on instrumental music in the background or other instruments like saxophone is very calming, for an example, violin, piano, and it may calm those around you as well and set up a calming atmosphere. The goal is to just try to slow down those racing thoughts that you might have, and there is even some studies that suggest certain music helps lower your heart rate. I have an example of this where I had to go to the dentist for a pulpal debridement to prepare for a root canal, and I felt so afraid that my heart was racing so much. The dentist was suggesting not to go through with the procedure, but I listened to jazz in my headphones and my heart rate went drastically lower to a normal rate. I find that writing down how I feel as well, even if it's just a word or two, helps me make sense of those racing thoughts that I may have. Sometimes when we feel anxious and have those racing thoughts, it's difficult to slow down and focus on why we are feeling these anxieties. These racing thoughts lead to us thinking that we don't know why we feel anxious, and because we don't know why, it's a snowball effect. And because we don't know why, it becomes a snowball effect and we become more anxious. Sometimes when we feel aware of how we are feeling and pinpointing how we felt beforehand, and the events that occurred beforehand, we can better understand what it was that made us feel this way. This helps us write down our thoughts and get them out of the way so that we don't have to dwell on them any longer. The next technique is take a walk or go to the bathroom if you just need a break, even if it is just something quick or stepping outside for a bit. Sometimes taking some time to yourself and just being away from where you felt anxious helps you feel like you will come back with a fresh perspective. It helps to get up and go when we are forced to sit down with those racing thoughts. Those thoughts give us these bursts of energy that we feel like we need to get rid of, even if it is a bad energy. As long as it isn't pacing, I think it is fine, like a calming walk where you can pay attention to your surroundings and just get away for a bit. Because to me, pacing makes me feel more anxious because it represents my thoughts. And so if my body is representing my thoughts, then it creates that snowball effect, like I mentioned before, and your thoughts will just feel like they are racing even more and going back and forth. Mindful meditation at your desk may help as well for a quick mental break without actually doing a full-blown meditation for 10 to 15 minutes. When you count your breaths and inhale on 4, for example, hold on 4 and exhale on 4 or longer, it is kind of like a mini meditation. There are also quick little mini meditations on YouTube or on applications on your phone that you could use as well. I used Insight Timer, that is a meditation app, or I used the Calm app. However, that does cost a little bit of money. If you have time for a longer one, please go for it because it helps to distract and relax. Also, when I say distract, I do not mean never face your problems, but a lot of the time, the anxiety that we feel, we may have to put on the back burner during work, or it is unnecessary thoughts and we can't stop worrying about things that we cannot control. The next technique is use your 5 senses, or at least 2 or 3 of them could help you ground yourself as well as to comfort yourself. I have mentioned this technique in a previous video, but if you do not remember this technique or did not watch the video, it is when you use your 5 senses to de-stress. For an example, crush a water bottle and think of the texture and what it sounds like. You could do any of these senses on nearly any object and even compare objects. I found that this technique helps, and sometimes you don't even realize it. It's kind of a fun technique, like color spotting. To me, I just feel very connected to my senses, and a lot of humans do. So it really helps to just go to your human instincts a little bit by focusing on what you're given, those 5 senses. And it's a very natural distraction and can really help you with calming yourself down. If you are on break, you could watch a video to de-stress or call a friend or family member to help distract you or a loved one. You could also read a book on a side note because that kind of makes me feel like I'm entranced and not concerned with what is going on around me, just within the book that I'm reading. If you knit, bring your knitting or your coloring or whatever hobby you can do during break. Paying attention to tasks that you like to do and tasks that make you happy can rid of your anxious thoughts. As long as those tasks aren't counterproductive to your well-being, they should work great long-term and short-term. I am recently starting to learn crocheting. I have not started yet, but I am buying a crocheting book and I want to learn to do that. So far, I've just been coloring as my hands-on kind of technique, but I'm really excited to start crocheting. Lastly, if you are feeling tense, doing some stretches in your seat or standing up, or even during your break, is super helpful in relaxing yourself. Stretching relaxes your muscles and helps you feel calmer and more relaxed. When we feel anxious or stressed, we tend to tense up our muscles, as we know. You can even give yourself a small massage and take some of that time for yourself during your break. It's called a break for a reason, so take that break to listen to what your body needs. Stretches are a great way to help you de-stress, and understanding and paying attention to your body and how it feels can tell us a lot about ourselves. If our muscles feel tense, typically that means that we are tense and we are feeling more stressed mentally. So, as we complete our journey, I want to wish you luck on your own individualized journeys and hope that you can find comfort in these videos and knowing that you are not alone. Please share these videos to spread awareness and end the mental health stigma. For those of you that do watch and support my videos, thank you. It means a lot to know that someone cares about these messages, especially now in a time where we need more love and less hate towards one another. Now we've completed our 8th journey together, so let's take a sip in of some self-love and exhale the stresses of life. So one last final note, I want you to think about what techniques help you, and I encourage you to challenge yourself to use some of these techniques during your work or class time when you are feeling anxious. So, see you next time.